Good evening. I'm Holly Smith. I run the Business and Policy programs here at Asia Society Hong Kong Center. Thanks to everyone for coming. We are delighted to have with us tonight Dr. Roey Tzezana of the Tel Aviv University to speak about AI, myths, myths, trends, and truths. We are also delighted to have with us Professor Naubahar Sharif of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And I'll turn it over to, I also want to thank the Consulate General of Israel in Hong Kong for their support for this program and introducing us to the speakers. And with that, I would like to introduce Consul General Amir Lati to give a few introductory remarks.
It will be a 1-minute remark, basically to thank Holly and thank the Asia Society for this ongoing cooperation, and thank Dr. Tzezana, which I met for the first time 6 years ago in Chengdu, for coming here. He has a very full program, and I think it reflects not only the interest, but also the importance of AI and the interest towards the future and AI. And we thought that he is one of the best candidates to come here and speak about it. He is a technological futurist. Professor Sharif, I will leave you to ask him about explanation exactly what does it mean. And I will also want to avail this opportunity to thank you, Professor Sharif, for coming here and moderating. Thank you. Happy New Year. For those of you who doesn't know, next week exactly is the Jewish New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lati. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naubahar Sharif. I'm from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, the head of the Division of Public Policy. As we all know, AI is no longer confined to science fiction. It's part of our everyday lives. And understanding its implications has become crucial. We're delighted to have our speaker, Dr. Roey Tzezana, who is speaking at Asia Society's AI Week, Artificial Intelligence Week. Together with the Consulate General of Israel, we welcome him to speak on the impact of AI on society, industry, and humanity. I'm just going to take a minute or two to introduce Dr. Tzezana. You know the title of his talk. Dr. Tzezana has a PhD from Technion, Israel Institute of Technology, in the year 2011 in the field of nanotechnology. He is a world-renowned futurist and AI researcher. He is also a co-founder of TeleBuddy, a robotics service company based in Providence, Rhode Island, offering robotic telepresence services worldwide. Dr. Tzezana has been an AI researcher at the Blavatnik Interdisciplinary Cyber Research Center, ICRC, at Tel Aviv University since May 2015. He is the author of Guide to the Future, which was also published in China, and Rulers of the Future, which has received international acclaim and recognition. Dr. Tzezana serves as a senior advisor at the World Future Society, the largest and most influential community of futurists. Dr. Tzezana has conducted research in future-oriented fields such as robotics, AI, longevity, and age reversal, as well as tissue engineering, and he has been on a quest to understand how technology will impact humanity and reshape our society and our institutions. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Tzezana to the lectern to offer his talk. Thank you.
So I want to start by asking a rhetorical question. And what are the myths that we used to have about computers? And here are just some of the myths, that they can only perform routine and boring tasks, that they lack creativity, that they lack emotions or the ability to understand human emotions and respond to them, that they must be told very, very precisely what to do, and if you don't tell them what to do very precisely, essentially they break down. They don't get things right. All of these are myths, are stories that we used to tell ourselves, and they were correct up until a few years ago. If we look at AI today, we see things have completely changed, and they've changed very, very quickly. Let me show you how quickly they've changed, because I think this graph illustrates a lot about what we can come to expect in the next couple of years. You can see here the rate of progress in certain capabilities like handwriting recognition, speech recognition, image recognition, and so on when it comes to AI. This is the average human performance, by the way. So when we look at handwriting recognition, which is quite a complex task, we see that it used to be practically impossible for AI to succeed at it around 20 years ago, 25 years ago, back in 1998. And since that time, the capabilities grew and grew and grew, but they grew gradually. And up until 2015 or so, when we finally managed to do it. AI is now as capable as the average human in handwriting recognition. By the way, the next time someone tells you, no, AI can never do something like that because only humans can do that, show them this graph and a few others that I'm going to show you. Speech recognition as well, it took around 20 years to get to the level where it's just as good as the average human in speech recognition. Image recognition, and this is more interesting. This is where artificial neural networks really took off. And you can see image recognition moving forward very quickly. The slope is much steeper now, so that in just 6 years we managed to get to the average human performance level. Reading comprehension, well, in 2016, AI was exceedingly poor at reading comprehension. A year later, it was much better. A year after that, it got to the average human performance. 2 years, that's all it took. For language understanding, 18 months, that's all it took. And this graph is actually from the past because it stops here at 2020. Here is the updated graph, and you can see what happened between 2020 and 2023. All of these capabilities that were in which AI used to be poor, now it's suddenly almost at the average human performance level. Not yet at the expert level for many of them, even though for for those from the last decade or two, you can see where they are right now. They are better than the average human performance. But I can tell you with high certainty that for all of those capabilities as well, by the end of 2024, will be, if not at the human performance level, then close to it. And by the end of 2025, even closer, or will even surpass it. This is the pace of change in AI that we are talking about right now. Now, what can, and the real question in my mind is, when will AI be able to do anything, or almost anything, that a human being can do? And I'm interested in your opinion on that. I'm going to give you 3 options. Is it going to happen by 2030? Is it going to happen by 2050? Or do you think it's going to happen by 2080 or never? So when is AI going to do almost anything humans can do? Who says 2030? Raise your hands. Wow. Who says 2050? Raise your hands. Who says 2080? Raise your hands. Okay. I like it that the moderator is neutral. He doesn't take sides. He knows the answer. But look, if you answered 2080, you were correct 4 years ago in the prehistory of AI. Because 4 years ago, if you were to ask the experts in ARK Invest, when are we going to get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, AI that can do almost anything a human can do, then they would have told you it's going to take 80 years or never. If you said 50 years, well, that was 1 year later, when the experts saw that GPT-3 was announced and how capable it is, and then they said, okay, maybe it's 50 years after all. And then they saw Lambda 2 and they went down to 18 years, and they saw ChatGPT and GPT-4 and they went down to 8 years. And if the experts are finally correct in their assessments, then we're going to have AGI in just 8 years from now or so. We're going to have it somewhere around 2030. If the experts are as pessimistic as they used to be, are too conservative as they have been so far, then we are probably going to get there by 2027 or 2028. And if we just look at the trend from the last 6 years of working with artificial neural networks and large language models, the trend is very, very clear. We started in 2018 or so with GPT-2 that was at the level of a preschooler. We got, a few years later, to GPT-3, which was at the level of elementary schooler. Now we are at GPT-4 that has the intelligence, symptomatic intelligence level of a smart high schooler. And in about 4 years from now, if we follow this trend, we're going to get an AI that is as symptomatically intelligent as a researcher, as an engineer, as a technologist. and we'll be able to use it and to put it to use in any field we like. What is the world going to look like in that case? Here is another forecast, this time by Sequoia Capital, that summarizes it all up. They believe, or at least they think, that by the year 2030, when it comes to text, we're going to have an AI that can create books or papers or articles just as well as the average, the standard human journalist or human author. In code, AI will be able to provide a product that is better than that of a full-time developer. When it comes to images, it will be able to create images that are better than those provided by, created by a professional artist, designer, or photographer. And the same goes for videos, for 3D, for gaming, and they're actually talking about video games and movies are personalized dreams. You want to watch a movie? A movie will be generated for you, like this. Maybe not in 2030. Maybe in 2031. Maybe in 2032. But the trajectory is clear. And we don't have to wait to 2030 to see all this happening, or to 2032 or to 2035. We are seeing the outcomes of this development right now. We're seeing them in the job market. If you look at the number of jobs that require, for example, writing, look what happened in the last 2 years. One of the most noble occupations, that of writing, that was always reserved to human beings, that shaped our minds in a very real way over the last 2, 3, 4,000 years, more than that, especially in the case of China. Well, suddenly we don't need as many writers as we used to. 30% less writers in just 2 years. And what we're seeing in writing and translation and customer service, we're probably going to see in other occupations as well. So this is the introduction to the discussion that we are going to have. And I say in advance that I don't have any good answers about what the world of tomorrow is going to look like. I have guesses, but it's something that we'll all have to find out about together. I do have some guesses and some directions that I think we should be talking about. For example, when it comes to the future of work, are we talking about job automation or are we talking about job augmentation? Are we talking about AI taking over our jobs completely, or are we talking about AI augmenting our jobs so that I can do my job better? These are two very different, very distinct options. And by the way, the World Economic Forum believes that we're going to witness automation that will displace 85 million jobs. Why am I not worried about this number? Because the World Economic Forum also believes that the robot revolution will create 97 million new jobs. So it's automation or augmentation or the creation of new jobs. McKinsey believes that 60% or 70% of the time that employees spend working can be taken over by AI, can be cut away by AI. Goldman Sachs believes that 2/3 of the occupations could be partially automated by AI. And you can see here the percent of occupations they are talking about. But, and this is really important, this is what the World Economic Forum says, we also see that innovation leads to new occupations. And if you think about it, many of the occupations that we have today, 60%, according to some statistics, have not existed just 80 years ago. So new jobs and new occupations and new professions will emerge. And this is just the beginning. We need to talk about AI safety. We need to talk about its impact on human creativity. We need to talk about its impact on society and how we integrate it into our governing systems. We need to talk about its impact on organizations. There are so many things to discuss, and I would love to talk about them right now with Professor Sharif, but before that, I think this should be the slide that's really over our heads. Good luck! Good luck to all of us.
Thank you. So can I please invite you to take a seat?
think I've ever managed to actually stay within the time limits of 10 minutes. Wow.
You did a pretty good job.
Thank you.
So we have about 20 minutes for a chat, and then I would actually like to open it up before the 20 minutes are up to the audience, because I think the audience members can ask very intelligent questions, much more intelligent minds. So I'll just kick the discussion off with a couple of questions. The presentation that you just made, Dr. Tzezana, was very insightful, very illuminating, very eye-opening, yet at the same time, it was also quite scary and sad that AI is accelerating at such a pace that it could essentially replace human beings. Is it necessary for us to be pessimistic about the rapid pace of the development of AI? Or should we take that more balanced view that with the development of AI, there are going to be new jobs, and there's definitely an optimistic side that we shouldn't neglect?
Yes, there is definitely an optimistic side. There are so many optimistic sides, but I want to talk about the optimistic side that we don't even, it's very easy for us to neglect, and that is the shift in paradigms. Because right now we're stuck in a certain paradigm that this is the world that we're supposed to be in, this is what the world should be like. We're stuck in what Jonathan Margolis has termed the hubris of the present, the pride of the present. We are certain that our present, that's the way it should be. But you know what they say, the future, it's a different country. They think differently there. And we're seeing that all throughout history. Paradigms and myths, the stories that we tell ourselves about the present, they constantly shift and change. And we can be so certain that, oh, AI is going to take away all of our jobs, nothing, we're not going to work anymore, we're going to go crazy. What will we do with all that spare time? Well, we're human beings. We'll find things to do with our spare time. We're social animals. We'll fight each other, you know, on social status and dominance and whatnot and mates, and we're social animals. So it will be okay. We'll find things to do. Even if AI takes all of our jobs away, we'll create a new economy that is based on other things other than producing, let's put it this way, physical, actual value, based on the accuracy and acuity of your knowledge work. So we won't need the medical doctor, the human medical doctor, as much anymore. But we will need people who will make us feel better about ourselves. We will need people who will connect between others. We will need people who will give us certain services and make so. Yeah, I'm not worried too much about... okay, I'm lying. I'm worried. And we should all be worried, because the transition period is going to be hell. It's not going to be easy. We need to start thinking about it. We need to start thinking about it long ago, but we do need to think seriously about it. But I am certain that my kids are going to prosper in this world. Once we get there and get to a certain stable status quo, where we'll find out how to live in this world.
Thank you. So if I may just like to go down the pessimistic path a little bit further before opening it up, and hopefully the audience can cheer us up with their less morbid questions than I have. AI is becoming so good, so fast. You showed us how preschool level intelligence, intelligent high school level intelligence, and soon enough it'll be at a PhD level intelligence, if not better. And as you mentioned, it can generate research, it can generate movies, it can generate books, novels, and so on and so forth. We'll be able to. When that time comes upon us, and it's probably likely to come sooner rather than later, as you just mentioned, and the decision-making capabilities of AI become so good, so perfect, is there a possibility that these utopian scenes that we see in science fiction movies, where AI decides to eliminate humans because we have this side of...
Is that utopian or dystopian?
Dystopian, sorry.
Okay, I think
of humans being non-rational, being sentimental, prone to all the idiosyncrasies and biases and prejudices that we humans have, will there come a time when AI technologies, not just computer technologies, but robots, machines, military technologies, supersede and eliminate humans?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, okay. Look, what you know, the answer is in the body of the question. Is it possible? Yes. It is possible, but we don't want it to happen. Or I would rather say we want it to happen to an extent. Once AI reaches a level of decision making that supersedes those of human beings, both as an individual human being and those of a committee, which is like, yeah, even much below a human being sometimes, or those of governance, then my personal belief is that we should automate as many decision-making processes as we can, as long as we control the outcome. We control the questions that we feed into the decision-making engines, and we decide in the end whether the answer is good enough or not. But we should integrate AI decision-making into practically any organization, both in firms and schools and governmental systems as well. How do we still maintain control over the AI in that case? That is a very good question. And that is a question that we need to start asking ourselves long ago, but we are asking ourselves it seriously now. This is called the value alignment problem. We haven't solved it yet. And I would say, I would go even farther than that. In order to solve the value alignment problem, to ensure that the AI has the same values as our values, we need to first figure out what are our values. Because values change significantly between the US and between Hong Kong and North Korea and Israel and North and South America and so on and so on and so on. So we need to start thinking, what are the core values that we humans should have? What can we agree on? It's not going to be easy because I believe my values are the best, obviously. You believe your values are the best. Every person here believes that their values are the best. Sometimes they don't even interpret their values the same. You know, they think that the person next to them thinks the same, but there is some shift. So we need to have an open and frank discussion about this. The discussion needs to happen I think in the UN and led by international organizations. I'm happy to say that the UN is just a week ago they issued a report saying that they should open a new AI office under the Secretariat of the UN. So they are taking it seriously as well. We need to start thinking about our values and which values we need to preserve for the future and which values we want the AI to preserve, which heuristics we want the AI to have, and not to be able to deviate from them.
All right, I do have more questions, but like I said, I'd like to open it up to the audience, and I'll hold on to my questions. If you have a question, just please raise your hand. I'll take note of who's raised their hands, and I'll call you up. The gentleman in the glasses over here. Yep, yes, you, sir. Yep, in the second row. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That was fascinating. I just have a quick question. Do you think AI will ever become self-aware or conscious, and when would that happen? Thanks.
Light. Now I can see you. That is a great question, which means I don't know the answer to it, but it's very interesting. Let me break it down. First of all, consciousness or sentience is, I think Mervyn Minsky said it's a bucket word, which means that it contains many different meanings and implications, and it's very difficult to focus on just one of them because you always miss the others. But let me go with self-consciousness. We'll try to figure it. Let's pretend that we know what it actually means. Your question can really be summed up, the answer to your question can be summed up in a different question. Do you believe that human consciousness has been created by God, directly by God, or through some kind of evolutionary process with with natural selection, or let's even go with artificial selection, whatever. Is it a result of magic, or is it a result of engineering, slow engineering over over many millennia? If you believe it's the result of engineering, then we can engineer it. We can make it happen. If it's magic, I don't know. And maybe it is, I'm an atheist, but maybe it is. But as long as you accept that the human brain has evolved, then just like trees have evolved and we can emulate photosynthesis and we can emulate tall buildings that are much taller than organic trees, we will be able to emulate consciousness or self-conscious machines as well. How? I don't know, because we don't yet know what makes us conscious. But I am confident that once we figure that out, we'll be able to do it for machines as well. And honestly, that's very scary to me. Not because I am concerned that a sentient machine will want to take over my place. We can constrain the sentient machine's thinking. Just like human beings are quite irrational in many ways, we can create irrational machines so they'll never, to direct the rationality, so they'll never want to overcome us, to rebel against us. The real thing I'm concerned about, and this may be very humanitarian on my side, but imagine a self-conscious machine that has fears, that can feel pain, loneliness, doubt. Imagine it computing its thoughts so much more rapidly than humans can. Imagine it being trapped in darkness for what feels like thousands of years to human beings, but maybe only minutes for the machine. I don't think it's going to happen that easily, but I do think that in our experiments towards granting machines consciousness, we may add some suffering to the world that way. I hope it won't happen, but there is a chance of that.
Just in the middle, and then Yusa.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for today's presentation. I think, and your graphs have really pictured it like really brilliantly, which is that there is significant progress in software and hardware that leads to artificial intelligence. One thing we tend to see now is that those new tools tend to use, for example, more energy, or they need specialized infrastructure. I just wanted to get your view on how bottlenecks in the physical world, in the infrastructure, and how we're going to deploy AI would maybe delay or accelerate, on the other hand, the capabilities for artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm an incredibly optimistic person. Fortunately, that seems to be working out just fine, because technology keeps... Hello. You just had to add it. Because technology seems to be bridging the gaps all the time, and it helps us find ways to overcome challenges constantly. And the one thing that's most important to the human race, that has really elevated us and moved us forward in history, that has caused us to rise from the level of chimps or whatever other ancestor that we had, and to reach the level where we are right now, that factor was science and technology, experimentation and technology, creating tools. They did some research once. You can read about it in Steven Pinker's The Naked Brain, I think. They did some research about which words you can find in all human cultures. And spear was one of them. By the way, murder was another. Which is good. it shows you that people everywhere understand that sometimes it's not, most of the times it's not okay to kill other people. So they actually add a word from murder as a bad word. But again, spear, technology is part of us. And that's what's moving us forward. Now, what does AGI mean, an AI that can do everything? It means that once you have it, you don't have to invest 30 years of education in each person in hope to get a scientist or an engineer. You click the button, or you put in the compute and the data, and you get a scientist, and you get an engineer. And then you get 1 million more scientists, and then 1 billion, as many as you like. Of course, each of them costs you computing power, costs you energy, costs you water for cooling purposes, and so on and so on and so on. But what do these scientists do in the meantime? They're not just laying there and watching YouTube like our PhD students do. No offense. What's YouTube in China? Never mind. But the point being, Baby, thank you. Belly,
Yeah.
belly. They're not just sitting there on their belly watching belly all the time. They are doing real research, and they are moving technology forward. So my expectation, again, very optimistic here, right? But my expectation is that the faster we see AI moving forward, the more, I would say, miracles we will see happening. Just like we see today, AI, in just 4 years, it's performing miracles. It's doing things that only the futurists, the crazy futurists, talked about 10 years or 20 or 30 years ago. So AI in 4 years has moved forward so quickly. We will see that in every field of technology. And most especially, obviously, sustainable energy, energy harvesting, better use of the resources that we already have. We've already seen Google utilizing AI in order to reduce its cooling costs in its server farms by somewhere between 20 to 40%. Just imagine what we can do with so many scientists, the top of the top that we'll have, and they'll work together on solving humankind's problems, and along the way, on enabling themselves to work by finding ways to get more energy in a sustainable fashion.
Can I just interject here? You talked a little bit about education, and you talked about creating scientists at the touch of a button. Can I just ask you, what is your conception of what education will look like 2035 and beyond, where AI will be able to manifest all these capabilities that you just mentioned? What will education look like? What do we need to educate our kids with, or what skills do they need to have? What would they need as a 7-year-old growing up to become a 25-year-old and entering the workplace? A 7-year-old in 2035.
You're asking about the tools and the methodologies. What is your final goal? What is your ideal outcome? What is the significance of a 25 years old person in the year 2050? I think that is the question that we really need to ask ourselves when we ask, how should we educate those little boys and girls today? And I don't have a good answer to that. I'm struggling with that myself all the time. How should I educate my kids? What should I tell them? What should I guide them towards? But I can give you a few thoughts and a few stories as well. First, around 2 years ago, I created... that was great fun. It was before ChatGPT, and I was already working with GPT before ChatGPT, right? There was an API, if you knew where to find it, on the internet. And I came up with a great idea, or at least I thought it was a great idea. I'm going to create an AI that taps into the GPT API on the internet and kids will be able to go into my website and they will put in their question from homework and it will give him an answer. And I thought it was an absolutely fantastic idea. So I carried it out. And apparently it wasn't that bad, because in 1 week in Israel we got 25,000 questions from kids all over the country. And teachers, you know, some teachers started sending me some not very nice letters because they don't use email. So the technology. But other teachers, they really got excited about this. One teacher actually told his kids, his pupils in 5th and 6th grade, he told them, listen, from now on, you're only submitting your homework once AI has done them for you. You need to start with AI and then do whatever you want until you submit them to me. But he said, if the homework is wrong, if the answers are wrong, I'm not going to punish the AI. I'm not going to penalize the AI. You are to blame. You're the masters of the AI. And they said, but we don't know how to work with AI. And they said, okay, so you should learn. And ever since that time, I visited schools in Israel and around the world, and I'm showing kids how to work with AI and how to be the AI's master. And I think that's a very important part of the answer. You need to teach the kids of today to master the automated tools, to gain a feeling of agency and autonomy, not to submit to the AI, because we see even experts submitting to the AI's ideas and opinions in a research with BCG and the Harvard Business School. We see that experts who have used AI got their answers wrong 90% more of the time. That's crazy. That means AI is fooling us. Not intentionally, not yet with sentience, but still. So we need to teach kids to develop a sense of agency, to believe in themselves, to develop critical thinking. So important. Develop critical thinking, and also how to use AI to do research. But first and foremost, technology literacy, AI literacy, a sense of agency and pride in being human, understanding that sometimes many times the process is more important than the outcome, because the process also teaches you some things along the way, and critical thinking all the time.
You, sir.
Well, thank you very much indeed. The remarkable thing about AI, it is speed of advancement and the creativity. And that's the impacts on human ingenuity. And if everything can be taken over by AI, I mean, as you rightly pointed out in your graphs and so on and so forth, so what's left of the human ingenuity and the value? And you mentioned value as well. And if AI is so smart, obviously it would encompass a lot of the values we cherish, or some of the values we like to embrace. So, my ultimate question is that, how do you control AI, which is developing so fast, so rapidly, and so creatively, and to make it work for mankind? Or is it controllable? If yes, why? If not, why not?
That is a great question. And I have no good answer to it. If AI, if all of us as humanity, I'm just focusing on the second part of your question, okay? How do we control the AI? If AI were to be developed by all of humanity together, we all would come together to develop the one big AI engine, then I would tell you that, yeah, we can definitely control it. Probably. We can probably control it, and it's all going to be just fine. That's not the way it works. We have several big tech companies working today to create the AI of the future, the AGI. We have OpenAI. We have with GPT. We have Anthropic with Claude. We have, let's see, we have Google with Gemini. We have Facebook with Meta. With Meta with Llama, sorry. And Llama is also open to a very real extent, so everybody else can also work with it. We have Mistral, and here in China we have companies, Baidu working on its own large language model, Alibaba working on its own large language model, and so on. And along the way, we also have everybody else. The 80%, the long tail, the little people who can now start creating their own large language models. And Andrei Karpathy, one of the either co-founders or early workers in OpenAI, he has already managed to recreate GPT-2, which was very impressive 6 years ago, which was groundbreaking 6 years ago. He managed to create it on his own for only $200 this year. So I would almost say that it doesn't matter what kind of safeguards you put on your AI. The question is, will everybody else put the same level of safeguards on their AIs? And I think it's pretty clear that they won't. Even if the big companies are responsible and will move very slowly forward, we know that they won't, but let's pretend for a second that they will. Even if governments will be very responsible and move slowly forward, they won't either, but maybe. You'll still have the lone wolf, the terrorists, the people who are unhappy with society, and they will create the other AI engines that won't be as good as, as the state of the art. But 2 years later, they will be, because that's the pace of progress today. So what do we do in that case? What do we do when anyone can create a genius-level AI and send it to the internet and tell it to blow up the world, to figure out a great new weapon to destroy humanity or whatever else they want? My answer is that it sounds incredibly frightening to our ears in the present. But that's because it's difficult for us to imagine an ecosystem in which everybody will have genius-level AIs like that. And governments are not going to just, stay quietly to decide, yeah, please, terrorists, go destroy the world, of course. We're going to have a cyber world, an ecosystem, with genius-level AIs fighting between each other. Hopefully only, it doesn't sound like it, I'm not making you I'm not helping you relax, am I? But as long as it's in the cyber world, I think it's still perfectly fine. We will have AIs that will try to discover rogue AIs, malicious AIs out there on the internet and take them down before they do any real damage. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to, to be a smooth ride into the future. But I am not of the same opinion as Eliezer Yudkowsky, who says that we have 100% chance of AI destroying humanity in the next 80 years, or Roman Yampolsky, who says that the chances are 99.99%. He's a little bit more optimistic than Eliezer Yudkowsky. But I really think that they are neglecting the fact that once you have genius-level AIs, you won't only have malicious AIs, but you will also have righteous AIs and protector AIs that will help us as humanity protect ourselves.
There's a gentleman at the back, and then we'll come to the front. At the back, what, you sir with the sunglasses? Did you? Yep.
What sort of technical advancements have occurred over the last few years to cause the acceleration of the evolution of AI to such a great degree?
So it's not only over the last 4 years, really it's the last 70 years Also, ever since the invention of the perceptron, which was a very early prototype of an artificial neural network, something close to it. But the field of artificial neural networks has existed for a very long time. It really made the big break forward in the last 25 years because of the advent of the internet, which provided enough data for artificial neural networks to be trained on. Sorry, and we finally had the computing power we needed, especially when Andrew Ng figured out that we can use GPUs to run artificial neural networks. That was a very big breakthrough as well, which suddenly meant that you could run AIs in server farms and train them and so on. And between 2011 to 2016 or so, that was when we started realizing that you can use artificial neural networks to do things that rule-based algorithms and algorithms developed by human beings just can't, they couldn't reach the same level of success, which was incredibly frustrating, I have to tell you, for many human professors. I actually talked with one in around 2014, and he expressed how frustrated he was that the artificial neural networks, which we don't really know how they work deep inside, they get better results at image recognition, for example, than the best algorithms created by human beings and devised by human beings. But in 2016, I'm opening a button here. In 2016, we discovered that we can trim artificial neural networks and create transformers. And transformers are architectures of artificial neural networks. And I like to compare them to organs or compartments in the brain, because your amygdala is not the same as your hippocampus and is not the same as your frontal lobes and so on. Each of these has a distinct function and it's good at something else. So the transformers are a type of artificial neural network architecture that's really, really good at completing the next token. Token could mean a word, token could mean a character, token could mean a nucleotide, in the DNA nucleotide, A, C, T, G, U sometimes. It could mean the next note in music. It could even mean the next pixel in a way. And it turned out that those transformers were very effective at what they did. That was the first surprise, happy surprise. The second happy surprise came when we discovered, and you know, it's incredible because we don't really know what we're doing. We don't really have a good theory, but it turns out that when you increase the size of the artificial neural network, you increase the size of the transformers, you add more neurons to it, you get better results, much better results. So suddenly, when you increase the size of the artificial neural networks from GPT-2 to GPT-3, which had significantly more neurons, again, nodes, let's put it this way, you got much better results. People didn't really expect that. They didn't know that would happen. So they kept increasing the size, and they got even better results. And they increased the size even more, and they got to GPT-4. And now it seems like we're starting to go back down, and we're starting to figure out ways to be more efficient. There's not just effective, but efficient. So smaller artificial neural networks with greater efficiency. So if I combine it all together, I think that covers the history of the last decade or so, and that is the way we got to where we are right now. Basically, more data, more compute, and just dumb luck, basically trying to increase the size, and it turned out that it worked. I am not sure that it will keep working, and that is why now we're working on making the systems more efficient rather than just larger.
Over here in the front, and then we'll go to the back.
Thank you, Professor Sharif. Dr. Tzezana, wonderful sharing. Thank you. 3 questions quickly. The first one, the first one, and the only one is that what would be, I guess the large language model, and as you mentioned, getting very good at guessing the next token, is inspiring a lot of ideas about what would be the large model, the LXM, the large language model inspired large model in the future, right? And Professor Li Feifei from Stanford just launched World's Lab, which is the 3D world model. In your mind, what is the most exciting thing in the large model moving forward that you're most excited about? Since you just allow me to ask one question.
Maybe another one? I'm incredibly excited about 2 things, both of which should also be very terrifying, obviously. The first one is an LXM that creates an autonomous organization. By the way, it may be composed of several LLMs, but I think the final outcome of that is essentially an agent that is an organization all on its own. And we already see hints of that coming, very strong hints, right? I mean, ChatDev, for example. ChatDev was developed by universities in China as well. Brown University, I think, and by here, your university? No? Okay.
Shouldn't say anything there.
Okay, so just in case you don't know what it's about, ChatDev is essentially it's an agent that is composed of several artificial neural networks, each of which was designated a certain role. So, for example, one of them is the CEO and plays the role of the CEO and acts and thinks like a CEO. Another is the CTO. Another is the CFO. Another is the designer and the technical writer and the developer and so on. And in a very nice paper from, I think, September 2023, they showed that they can actually give this agent, which in a way it's a company, right? It's a company composed of autonomous workers. So they can actually tell the CEO AI that, hey, we want you to create a new game. And the CEO AI will go and talk with the CTO AI and discuss strategy and what they need to do. And the CTO will go to his subordinates and to the technical writer and to the developer and will talk with them about what needs to be done. And then he'll go back to the CEO and talk with him about it and so on. They essentially created an entire workflow that emulates that happens in an organization. And it took 7 minutes and $1, and they got a computer game out of it. It wasn't a very good computer game. They got only 80% of the game. Half of the problems were just, nonsense. They limited the tokens too much. The other half was things that I think by now, with GPT-4 Omni and GPT-01, they've been solved. And what that means for me is that this is a proof of concept in the academy of an autonomous organization. An organization, for example, that can create games for you. Remember that we said earlier that you want to watch a movie on the airplane, so you click a button, and 5 minutes later, you get a movie that was directed and created especially for you, specifically for you. Well, this is what will happen. We are going to have a production organization, a movie production organization, that's also going to pay taxes autonomously to the government and to fire people. It will have to employ some people, right? Occasionally. So it will manage them, and it will command them when they do good, and it will fire them when they do bad. And I know that we don't have much time, so I'll just add one more sentence. Now think of having an autonomous organization like this, which will completely disrupt the industry and the economy that we have right now, and think of applying it to governmental systems. Think of creating ministries that are 99% automated and basically working with AI. I think those are the things that will truly change human society, and that we need to think about them very, very carefully, because essentially you give AI agency there to have a dramatic impact on the human world.
Okay, as was mentioned, we only have about 4 minutes. There are two hands raised earlier, one at the back, and then in 2 rows ahead. So we start at the back, the penultimate question.
Thank you for the discussion. I am very interested in medicine, and I wanted to ask a simple question. Hope I'll be able to express myself well. It's about application of AI in humans. So, for example, in human bodies, for example, putting microchips in brains or in different parts of the body. I'm just wondering, doing all this technology, biotech, what we're doing, will that have until what level can we go so that is there a risk of creating a more augmented human or a humanoid or a robot, such that the line between are you a human, are you augmented human is blurred? Firstly, that's my question. Secondly, the question is just regarding governance. This is something very scary, and this brings us to the artificial selection. You talked about artificial selection earlier on. Will we be able to select our babies that way? I want blue eye, whatever. So just regarding governance, are there rules in place? Thank you very much.
These are good questions, and I think the problem again is about what we feel is right. And what we feel is right for mankind to be like, what we feel humans should be like. And those ideas, what should humans be like, it's very difficult to argue with them, because they've been integrated into us from the moment we were born, essentially, by the society around us. And you talk about a risk of having augmented humans. I don't see it as a risk. I see it as a development. Developments could be can be good, and they can be bad at the very same time. But I see it as an obvious development. I am an augmented human being. These glasses, come on, I can't see anyone right now, barely even you. I already am augmented. Many people here, I think, would not be alive if it were not for the medicine, the sophisticated medicine that we have today. What do you call it? Tube babies?
Test tube babies.
Thank you so much. Test tube babies. They were thought of. I'm sorry, but there were articles about them being an abomination 40 years ago, and now it's obvious that they are human beings and everything's fine. So, yeah, I'm feeling confident in saying that we will augment ourselves. It will feel frightening, especially to those of us who have not grown up with the technology, but for our kids, they'll feel as if it's completely natural. It will have some risks. It will have a lot of benefits. We'll need to figure it out.
Very last question here from the gentleman who's been very patient in waiting.
Thanks very much for the very interesting talk. I wanted to get your sort of comments on it's said that AI is a centralizing technology, where, the owners of the models or the infrastructures will sort of reap the majority of the profits around it, and society will be dependent on those centralizing on those sort of entities that control the models or the infrastructure and sort of centralize a lot of the society in some way. So I'm just curious to hear your views on that.
I'm really sorry, but I think...
My question is, in summary, that it's been said that AI is sort of a centralizing technology where power is sort of consolidated to very powerful entities that can control the models or the infrastructure that power them. And I just wanted to hear your view on how that might, if you agree with that and how that might impact society.
I think there is a concern about that, and it's a real concern. And obviously, governments can decide with their control over their territory and the infrastructure in their territory and the communications infrastructure in their territory, they can decide in the end what comes in and what's allowed to operate in the territories. We see that, at least for the moment, in the open world, we see a proliferation of open source AI engines and AI models. We see people retraining open source models all the time, and new open source engines come out almost by the day. So I think the real question is about who has the power to limit the use in AI engines, and how do they choose to use that power, and to what purpose. And that's not a question for technologists or AI. Yeah. It's a question about it's a question about governance and geopolitics.
Thank you.
All right, we are out of time. There were 5 minutes left for closing remarks, but I'll just take 30 seconds, and those remarks are just to wholeheartedly thank Dr. Tzezana for his hour of sharing and for opening our minds and broadening our horizons, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me in saying that leaving this talk, we'll definitely have a lot of food for thought about the next 5, 10, 15 years and its future impacted by the accelerated development of AI. So with that, I'd just like to all join us in thanking Dr. Tzezana for a wonderful hours of...
Thank you, Professor Sharif.
Yes, thank you to both of our speakers tonight. That was fascinating. I hope you can come back and continue the conversation, and thanks to all of you for coming tonight.